It was freezing out, and I wanted to go buy a scarf, but my roommate stopped me. She said she knew how to knit, and told me to just give her the money, so she could make one for me instead. I agreed. So she knit me a scarf by hand. The first time I wore that scarf, my grandma accidentally fell down the stairwell and died. The building super said the hallway lights had blown out that day. Grandma couldn't see the steps clearly, fell, and that was it. The second time I wore that scarf, my mom called to tell me my sister had died in a freak accident right after her surgery. My sister had undergone a minor procedure. The surgery was a success, and the doctor had moved her to a regular room for observation. Who could have guessed that while she was recovering, a violent sociopath in the same room would stab her to death? The last time I wore that scarf, I had just walked out of the dorm heading to the cafeteria when a stray cat suddenly appeared on the roof. The cat knocked over a flower pot, which fell and crushed me to death. After I died, my soul drifted into the sky. I saw my roommate, Zoe, standing alone by my bed, muttering to herself. The scarf's curse worked. Finally, I can rewrite my destiny. From then on, her luck just kept getting better. She won the lottery every time she played, and she even started looking more beautiful. That's when I realized the scarf she gave me carried a vicious curse. It had siphoned off my luck, costing me my life. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day I wanted to buy the scarf. This time, I wasn't going to let Zoe get away with it. One second I was up in the sky fighting other spirits over who was the best-looking ghost, and the next a bright light hit me and I blacked out. When I woke up, I was sitting in a warm room. I looked around and realized I was back in my dorm. While I was still in shock, someone walked toward me. I took a closer look. It was Zoe. How was she standing in front of me? Was I reborn? Chloe, did you just say you wanted to buy a scarf? You never know what kind of cheap synthetic trash they use for scarves online these days. It's not safe. Zoe walked up to my desk, looking at me with a face full of innocence. Before I could reply, she continued. I know how to knit. Why don't you just Venmo me the money you were going to spend, and I'll knit one for you. Once she finished her spiel, it finally clicked. I really had been reborn. I'm a college student. I took Philosophy 101. I'm a rational person who believes in science. Usually, when people talk about ghosts or reincarnation, I think it's total nonsense. But the cursed scarf from my past life, and the fact that I was sitting here again made me believe in the supernatural for the first time. In my last life, Zoe's cursed scarf killed me. In this life, there was no way in hell I was taking anything from her. Oh, I was just saying that. I thought about it, and honestly, I don't wear scarves that often. I'm not gonna buy one. Hearing me say I wasn't buying one, a flash of disappointment crossed her face. It was only for a split second, though, and she immediately went back to normal. Chloe, it's cold out. You really should have a scarf. We're roommates, I'm just looking out for you. Hearing that made me even angrier. She killed me in my last life, and now she wants to do it again? Screw that. I looked at her impatiently. Can you stop? I already said I don't need it. Why do you keep asking? We were getting a bit loud, so my other two roommates, Sarah and Taylor, looked over. Noticing their stares, Zoe seemed embarrassed and retreated to her own desk. I needed to process everything that was happening, so I left the dorm alone and headed straight for a spicy noodle shop near campus. I love spicy food. Whenever I'm upset and need to blow off steam, I go get a huge bowl of spicy noodles. After wolfing down a giant bowl, my head cleared up. I paid the bill and went back to the dorm. When I got back, I found a bag sitting on my desk. I opened it. It was a scarf. I looked closely. It was the exact same scarf Zoe had given me in my past life. Seeing me pick up the scarf, Zoe rushed over. Chloe, I knit this for you anyway. Try it on. Wow. In the time it took me to eat a bowl of noodles, she knit a whole scarf? I didn't buy that for a second. There was only one possibility. She had knit it beforehand and was just looking for an excuse to give it to me. I hadn't expected that just because I mentioned buying a scarf, she'd use it as a chance to offload this cursed thing on me. In my last life, I thought she was just being nice. I didn't even question how she finished it so quickly. In this life, I didn't trust her at all. Everything about this felt wrong. I threw the scarf, bag and all onto the floor. Who asked you to knit this for me? I don't want it. Take it away. Seeing the scarf on the floor, Zoe started to panic. She snatched it up and immediately launched into a performance. She rubbed her eyes, squeezed out a few crocodile tears, and choked out a sob. Chloe, I just thought since we're friends, I'd make you something nice. I didn't know you'd hate it so much. I'm sorry, sob. Watching her act, I felt like someone should hand her an Oscar. It was truly a moving performance. Sarah and Taylor couldn't sit still anymore. They both ran over to defend Zoe. Sarah put one arm around Zoe and pointed her other hand right at my face. Chloe, who do you think you are? Zoe was nice enough to knit you a scarf, and this is how you treat her. You're biting the hand that feeds you. Unbelievable. Taylor chimed in. Seriously, you're so ungrateful. At this point, Zoe, safe in their arms, flashed a smug look. I looked at the three of them, birds of a feather, and rolled my eyes. I never asked her to knit me a scarf. She forced it on me. Do I not have the right to say no? That shut them up. They stood there stunned for a moment, unable to speak. Eventually, the atmosphere got too awkward, so Sarah and Taylor helped Zoe out of the room. Before leaving, they gave me a dirty look. Someone like you doesn't deserve friends. Once they were gone, I finally felt calm. In my last life, the cursed scarf killed my grandma and my sister. I carried so much guilt over that. Since I was back, the first thing I did was call my grandma to remind her to be careful when she went out. Grandma doted on me, so she took my words seriously. She promised she'd be extra careful. At the same time, I called the management office at my grandma's apartment complex and asked them to check the lighting in the stairwells. At first, they blew me off, saying it wasn't time for scheduled maintenance. But after I insisted, they went to check. They called back later to tell me the lights actually had some issues, but they had fixed them. Knowing the lights were working, I finally relaxed. Grandma should be safe now. Next was my sister. In my past life, she was stabbed to death in her hospital recovery room. In this life, to prevent that accident, I specifically asked my mom to take her to a different hospital for the surgery. Mom was reluctant at first because the other hospital was further away and less convenient. But after I kept insisting, she finally compromised and took my sister to the other hospital. My grandma and sister died in the last timeline essentially because of the scarf's curse. In this life, I refused the scarf, got the lights fixed, and moved my sister to a different hospital. I figured the tragedies from my past life shouldn't happen now. With those immediate fires put out, I had one more important thing to do: figure out where this scarf came from. In my past life, I only knew the scarf was cursed. But what exactly was the curse? And how do I break it? I had no idea. To be safe, I needed to investigate. So, I decided to head to the woods behind the campus. Why there? Because during a field trip once, I saw a small fortune teller's shop at the foot of the hill. The teacher with us jokingly said that the psychic there was powerful. He knew the past and future, understood the spirit world, and could turn bad luck into good. At the time, we thought the teacher was kidding. None of us took it seriously. But now that I've experienced these bizarre events personally, I thought maybe that place could actually explain the origin of this cursed scarf. After leaving campus, I hurried toward the woods as fast as I could. But by the time I got near the trail, the sun was already setting. The blood-red sun dipped slowly behind the mountains, dyeing the sky a grotesque crimson. In that eerie afterglow, the forest looked like a cluster of demons bearing their claws. The branches twisted and tangled, casting strange, distorted shadows that looked like waves of darkness ready to swallow everything. I steeled myself and walked toward the psychic's shop. The whole way, the wind howled past my ears. Leaves rustled like countless ghosts whispering and wailing. The sound crawled up my spine, making my scalp tingle. Occasionally, birds and crows would startle from the trees, their sharp cries piercing the terrifying silence. They flapped their black wings like cursed spirits, vanishing quickly into the gloom. Halfway there, I suddenly regretted coming. But I was too scared to go forward and too scared to go back, so I just kept walking. The path to the shop wound deep into the darkness. A few ancient tombstones stood crookedly by the road. The writing on them was worn away, as if whispering ancient, horrific stories. Weeds grew wild around the stones, shivering in the wind as if something were slithering through them. As the sunlight vanished, fog rose slowly from the valley, cold and damp, like a shroud wrapping around the mountain. In the fog, vague human shapes seemed to sway, their forms indistinct, drifting closer step by step. They looked like lost souls trapped between twilight and night, forever bound to these woods. Looking at the increasingly creepy forest, I started to run. Running made it worse. I felt like someone was chasing me. Finally, just as I was about to collapse from exhaustion, I reached the little shop and rushed inside. The psychic, Mr. Zhang, looked at me panting for air. He didn't ask anything, just gestured for me to sit and rest. Since he offered, and I was exhausted, I sat down. After a moment he spoke. "Miss, my name is Zhang. You can call me Mr. Zhang. Now tell me about your situation." Since he asked, there was no point in hiding it. I told him roughly what had happened recently. However, I didn't say I was reborn. I framed it as a very vivid dream. After hearing my story, Mr. Zhang asked, "Can you describe the scarf?" I thought carefully and described it. The difference between that scarf and normal ones was the material. Most scarves use wool or yarn, but this one was knit with a strange thin thread. It looked like the rough fabric used in ancient clothing. In my past life, I had been curious about it too. I asked Zoe, and she just said the thread was unique to her family. It was warm, so I didn't pry. Now that I think about it, that thread was definitely the problem. Mr. Zhang listened, his expression serious. If I'm not mistaken, that thread comes from a burial shroud. Clothes worn by the dead carry death energy, Shachi. If you make something else out of that fabric, it transfers that death energy to the living. I suspect that scarf was left to your roommate by an elder in her family. The purpose is to transfer the bad luck to someone else so she can steal their good fortune. Hearing Mr. Zhang's explanation, it all made sense. That was how Zoe stole my luck. Since the scarf was cursed, I had to destroy it. Otherwise, it would just bring disaster to someone else. I asked Mr. Zhang if there was a solution. He thought for a moment, then nodded. He took out a talisman paper and gave it to me. If you want to completely destroy the cursed scarf, you need a lock of your roommate's hair. Tie her hair to the scarf. Then burn this talisman along with the scarf. That is the only way to purge the death energy. Before I could reply, he continued. Remember, it must be the hair of the person who gave you the scarf. Only the DNA of the person connected to it can trigger the energy to be released. Once the energy is released, my talisman can suppress and destroy it. I thanked Mr. Zhang profusely. I grabbed the talisman and turned to leave, only to realize it was pitch black outside. It's too late to go back. It's not safe. You can stay here for the night. Staying with a stranger made me nervous, but I didn't know what was waiting for me out in those woods. Staying here seemed like the lesser of two evils. Hey, I've already died once. Worst case scenario, I die again and respawn, right? Mr. Zhang seemed to sense my hesitation. Don't worry. I won't harm you. Treat this like a hotel. You can just pay me for the room tomorrow. Since he put it that way, I had no reason to refuse. So he showed me to a spare room. I thought I'd be up all night, but the moment I hit the mattress, I was out like a light. When I woke up, it was morning. I scrambled out of bed. Mr. Zhang had prepared water for me to wash my face. I quickly freshened up. I paid him for the consultation and the room. As I walked out of the shop, his voice called out from behind me. Miss, not everything gets a second chance. Being able to start over is a blessing. I hope you get what you wish for in this new life. As for those who did evil, you don't need to lift a finger. Karma will handle them. I turned around to look, but the shop door was already closed, and Mr. Zhang was gone. He must have known I was reborn. I shouted toward the closed door. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. I'll live a good life. Then I turned and headed back to school. Strangely, the road that was so terrifying and difficult yesterday seemed perfectly flat and easy to walk on today. When I got back to campus, I went straight to the cafeteria. Revenge is important, but so is breakfast. While I was eating, my phone rang. It was Grandpa. I picked up immediately. Chloe, your grandma fell down in the stairwell. My heart stopped. I frantically asked, How did she fall? Is she okay? She just sprained her ankle. I took her to the hospital to get it wrapped up. It's nothing serious. She said she just missed a step coming downstairs. Hearing she was okay, I relaxed a little. Grandpa, I'm glad she's okay. Please take care of her. I'll ask my advisor for time off and come home to see her as soon as I can. Grandpa immediately stopped me. Chloe, don't take time off. It's really nothing serious. I'm taking care of her. She only told me to call you so you'd know she's fine. She was worried you'd panic if you found out later, so she wanted to tell you up front. Just focus on your classes. Come visit on the weekend. Since he insisted, I agreed. Before hanging up, I warned them again to be super careful when they went out. Grandpa promised. After hanging up, I was confused. In this life, I clearly refused the scarf. Why did Grandma still fall? Was it really just a coincidence? I lost my appetite. I grabbed my phone and headed back to the dorm. When I walked in, Taylor and Sarah acted like I was invisible, just doing their own thing. Zoe, however, walked right up to me and asked in a sickly sweet voice, Chloe, where did you go yesterday? You didn't come back all night. I didn't have the energy to deal with her. None of your business. I climbed up onto my bunk. The weather was nice, and I wanted to take my bedding down to air it out in the sun. Zoe didn't get mad at my brush off. Instead, she stared intently at what I was doing. When she saw me grab my duvet, she screamed. I stopped and looked at her, confused. Why are you screaming? Nothing. I just had a tickle in my throat. Needed to cough. Seeing I wasn't engaging, she continued. Chloe, are you going to air out your duvet? I nodded and went to lift it. Chloe, wait. There's no space left on the drying racks downstairs. Maybe do it another day. When I walked up, I clearly saw plenty of empty spots on the racks. Why would she lie about that? Combining her weird reaction with the lie, I realized she really didn't want me moving my bedding. Why? Is there a ghost in my bed? I ripped the sheets off and lifted the mattress pad. My movements were too fast for her to stop me. I looked underneath. Sandwiched between my mattress and the bed frame was a scarf. It was the exact same scarf she tried to give me yesterday, the one I refused. Seeing the scarf, fury exploded in my chest. I knew it. I refused the scarf, so why did Grandma still get hurt? It was because Zoe hid the damn thing under my bed, exposing me to the death energy anyway. I grabbed the scarf and threw it right in Zoe's face. Are you sick? I told you I didn't want this. Why did you shove it under my bed? What is wrong with you? Zoe, having been yelled at, immediately crouched on the floor and started her act again. Chloe, I'm sorry. I just thought the scarf suited you so well, but you wouldn't take it. I didn't know what else to do. She sobbed while she spoke. Seeing her so pitiful, Sarah and Taylor couldn't take it anymore. They rushed over to help her up. Taylor snapped at me. Chloe, don't be such a bully. Zoe treats you so well, and you're completely ungrateful. Sarah nodded, picked the scarf up, and slapped it onto my desk. Chloe, Zoe knit this for you out of the kindness of her heart. Even if you don't like it, you can't just throw it at her. Were you raised in a barn? Seeing she had backup, Zoe stopped crying. She looked at me with those puppy dog eyes. Chloe, I know it's not expensive, but it's from my heart. I really hope you'll accept it. I was about to refuse again, but then I remembered Mr. Zhang said I needed to burn it to destroy the curse. If I kept it, I could destroy it. So I feigned reluctance. Fine. Since you insist, I'll take it. Thanks for the thought. Hearing I accepted it, a hint of a smile appeared on Zoe's face. It vanished quickly, but I saw it. I tidied up my bed, grabbed my duvet, and walked out of the dorm to go downstairs. As I left, I heard them talking. Look at her. Zoe is so nice to her, and she's so ungrateful. Taylor added, seriously. She's trash. Oh well, maybe Chloe just doesn't like me. It's okay. I'll just try harder so she hates me less. Listening to her manipulative innocent act, I almost puked. I practically ran downstairs with my bedding, terrified my ears would rot if I listened for one more second. After airing out my duvet, I wandered around the neighborhood near the school. When enough time had passed, I headed back to the dorm. I guess they would be in class by now. At the start of the semester, the three of them signed up for the same elective. They didn't tell me, just to be clique Y and exclude me. But that worked out perfectly for me now. When I got back, the room was empty. I walked over to Zoe's desk and started searching. She had a habit of playing with her hair when she was bored, so I figured there'd be stray hairs around her desk. Just as I thought, I found plenty of hair. I collected a bunch of it. Then, I took the scarf and the hair, and went to the woods behind the school. I needed a secluded spot to burn things without getting caught. I wrapped the hair inside the scarf and used a lighter to set it on fire. Once the flames caught, I tossed the talisman into the fire. A moment later, a plume of black smoke rose from the flames. That must be the death energy. The black smoke hovered in the air for a moment before dissipating completely. The curse was broken. After dealing with the scarf, I took a slow walk through the woods. Yesterday, I was in a rush and it was dark, so it felt terrifying. Today, in the daylight, knowing the problem was solved, the woods had a strange, haunting beauty. The setting sun painted the sky blood red, casting eerie shadows on the jagged rocks, like sleeping beasts. Deep in the woods, vines twisted like giant pythons. Leaves shivered in the cold wind, rustling like the whispers of ghosts. But on the hilltop, there was a sea of brilliant flowers. They bloomed intensely, their petals seeming to glow in the dim light. The scent was overwhelming, a mix of sweet fragrance and the smell of decay. In the center of the flowers stood a lonely, dilapidated grave. The writing on the stone was illegible, hinting at some long-forgotten tragedy. After hanging out for a bit, I left. The place was beautiful but weird, and I didn't want to tempt fate. I walked back toward campus. As I arrived at the school gate, I saw an ambulance parked there. A crowd had gathered. I didn't know what happened. I'm not one to rubberneck, so I didn't go over. I just went straight back to the dorm. The room was still empty. That was weird, their class should have been over by now. I asked a girl from the dorm next door. You didn't hear? It's huge news. She looked at me shocked. I told her I had been out. She told me what happened. The person in the ambulance was Zoe. A flower pot fell off a roof and smashed into her. Zoe got hit by a flower pot. I figured this was her karma. In my last life, I was killed by a falling flower pot. In this life, I wasn't, so the fate transferred to her. I thanked the neighbor and went back into my room. Just as I sat down, my mom called. I picked up immediately. Chloe, your sister's surgery is done. It was very successful. The doctor says she can be discharged after a few days of observation. I was overjoyed. I told Mom to stay vigilant for the next few days and keep a close eye on her. Mom promised she would. That night, Taylor and Sarah came back. They told me Zoe had died from her injuries. I felt a strange sense of closure. It was cause and effect. If she hadn't had such malicious intent, she wouldn't have lost her life. The two of them were grieving, but I was indifferent. They called me cold-hearted. They called me a traitor, saying Zoe was so good to me and I didn't even shed a tear. I almost laughed. Yeah, Zoe was so good to me. The kind of good that takes your life. I didn't bother arguing. Ignorance is bliss. They weren't reborn, they didn't know the truth. To avoid further drama, I applied for a room transfer with the RA. Usually, switching rooms is a hassle because beds are assigned, but luck was on my side. A student in another room had just taken a leave of absence, so there was an open spot. I moved in immediately. My new roommates didn't isolate me, they were actually super nice. I lived with Sarah and Taylor for 2 years and never really clicked. In the new room, we became best friends in weeks. Some people are just meant to be friends. Others are meant to kill you. A while later, I heard that Taylor and Sarah got sick. Apparently, staying in the old dorm, they started having nightmares every night. They dreamt of Zoe standing by their beds, covered in blood. They were too terrified to sleep. Eventually, their health collapsed. Their parents had to pull them out of school and take them home to recover. I mean, if I saw my friend get crushed by a flower pot, I'd probably have nightmares too. I silently wished them a speedy recovery. Epilogue. Later, during the break, I went home to see my grandma. Her leg was fully healed. She was out in the plaza every evening, dancing with her group of friends. My sister was discharged safely. On the day she left the hospital, The news reported that a violent sociopath had been arrested at the other hospital. He had dropped his knife before he could hurt anyone and was tackled by security. It was perfect. In this life, no one got hurt. Watching my grandma and sister safe and sound, I felt truly happy. I guess this second chance at life was worth it after all. The end.